For centuries, religious belief operated under a social contract known as accommodationism. Under this baseline, society granted faith an automatic, unquestioned respect, effectively insulating religious claims from intellectual criticism. Cultural norms required both believers and non-believers to handle theology with extreme care. Even when confronted with bizarre or contradictory doctrines, the public felt a social obligation to offer polite lip service in the name of tolerance. This produced a rigid binary in public life. A person was either a believer or they were not, leaving no room for a scientific investigation into the probability of those beliefs being true. The rise of global internet connectivity in the early 2000s began to fracture this unspoken truce. As electronic media made global communication instantaneous, the diplomatic posturing that had long concealed mutual disrespect between differing dogmas started to fail. Living in a world of total transparency made it impossible to hide the contradictions between faiths. This digital friction set the stage for a radical reevaluation of how society discusses religion. A new group of critics decided that the cultural immunity granted to religion should no longer be the default. They sought to strip away the special respect that had protected sacred claims for generations. They introduced a new intellectual paradigm, treating the existence of a deity not as a matter of faith, but as a testable claim, a scientific hypothesis like any other. Moving the concept of God into the realm of science removed its traditional defenses. Once framed as a hypothesis, religious claims became subject to the same rules of evidence and scrutiny used in any other field of study. Evolutionary biologist Richard Dawkins became the primary catalyst for this shift with the 2006 release of his book, The God Delusion. Dawkins was joined by other new atheists like Christopher Hitchens, Sam Harris, and Daniel Dennett, who publicly challenged the structural truth claims that religions make about the universe. Their methodology centered on a single requirement: evidence. They argued that if a religion claims to describe the actual state of the universe, it must provide verifiable proof to support those claims. This led to a central rule of the movement: what can be asserted without evidence can and must be dismissed without evidence. The new atheist movement defined itself through this uncompromising requirement for proof. It demanded that religious belief face the same rigorous standards as any biological or physical theory. To move past the unscientific binary of belief, Dawkins introduced the spectrum of theistic probability, a 1 to 7 scale to measure one's position based on evidence. At the far left is milestone 1, the strong theist. This represents 100% certainty God exists, based on faith. Milestone 4 is the true agnostic, the exact 50-50 middle ground where the existence and non-existence of a deity are equally probable. And milestone 7 is the strong atheist, who is 100% certain that there is no God. Critics frequently label Dawkins and his peers as extremists by assuming they occupy this dogmatic milestone 7. They argue that absolute certainty in the absence of a God is just another form of faith. However, Dawkins actually identifies as a 6.9. He is a de facto atheist who assumes God isn't there, but deliberately leaves a small sliver of probability open in the event of new data. Because this form of atheism is based on a lack of evidence, a thinking person must remain open to new facts. It is a position of scientific probability, not absolute dogma. When religious claims are held to the same evidentiary standards as biology or physics, they often fail to support the weight of scrutiny. By removing the cultural shield of faith, the new atheists demonstrated that many sacred doctrines lacked any measurable foundation. This measurable impact reached far beyond academic circles. In parts of the world where atheism is a capital crime, the Arabic translation of Dawkins' book was downloaded tens of millions of times, providing millions of people with the vocabulary to express their own private doubts for the first time. This massive surge in public interest broke the long-standing taboo against questioning theology. It shifted the conversation away from polite silence and toward a more candid exploration of the supernatural. The new atheism movement avoided building a new rigid dogma to replace the old ones. Instead, by providing a structured, logical framework, it turned disbelief into a rigorous and socially respectable intellectual position. Being a modern atheist isn't about claiming to have all the answers. It is a commitment to follow the evidence, regardless of where that evidence leads. Treating God as a hypothesis replaces the fear of the unknown with the courage to ask demanding questions out loud and the willingness to accept the answers that nature actually provides.